What's up guys, this is Gungjo, and today I just want to talk about Apex Legends and kind of the state of the game at the moment. And to be blunt with you, I don't think the game is in the best place right now. Like, the Kings Canyon changes were fun at the start of the season, but I think we're seeing a lot of kind of reasons that people would disengage from the game at this stage. And I think this tends to happen at these kind of later stages in the season. But these later stages in the season in Apex Legends are quite a number of weeks, so there's a lot of time that people are going to disengage and get bored with the game. And I want to talk about a few of the problems and why they are occurring at the moment. So I think, first of all, one of the big problems relates to skill-based matchmaking. And I don't have a problem playing equally skilled opponents. But what I do have a problem with is kind of the lack of transparency here, and the very inconsistent feel with how one match will be to another. It often feels like in Apex Legends, I'm doing really well one day, and then the next day we're getting these super hard, sweaty matches all of the time. And it just really prevents you from being able to understand, like, if you're doing well or if it's just the game giving you easy games. Like, I don't want to have a good time only because the game's manipulated the matchmaking system so that it's fun, you know? And I think the problem with this is when you're suddenly getting tough matches, a lot of the game's design really comes apart as well. Like, I'm an Octane main, I'm playing Lifeline in this particular video, but I'm an Octane main. And Octane is a character that really, I think, exemplifies this issue. Octane is a character that's fun to play so long as your opponents are bad. Or not so good anyway. And that's because kind of his bounce pad, okay, it's been buffed and it's a bit better than it is before. There's still some issues. It still doesn't, like, the double jump doesn't work as consistently as I'd like. It doesn't work when you're healing. It doesn't work if you try and use the double jump at the peak of the jump. The double jump doesn't always give you the same kind of arc. There's some, like, unpleasant inconsistencies with how that works. And even then, I don't think the double jump is a huge game changer. I think people were overly optimistic as to how changing your jump arc would influence the game. But, you know, he's a fun character. But I think the problem with Octane, and this is why I say he's only as good as your opponents are bad, is that good players will just laser you out the sky. And yeah, sure, the double jump helps a tiny bit with that, but you're still going to be on that relatively predictable arc for much of the time. A Pathfinder zip, you can kind of just drop off it straight away. But an Octane, if you bounce, you're in the air for like 5 seconds or whatever, and you can't shoot anyone when you've done that. You kind of committed to that movement option. And like I say, if you're using it as a push tool, if you're using it to push on someone and they just laser you out the sky, which good players often will, obviously that's not useful. You don't want that to happen. But against bad players, you kind of get away with a lot, and it really plays as I'm sure the developers imagined it would. You know, you're kind of bouncing around, you're like throwing arc stars at people, you're able to use shotguns in the air to down people out the sky and stuff like that. It's crazy stuff, lots of fun. But anytime it comes to like a high level game or a ranked game, useless. And this is where the skill-based matchmaking becomes a problem, because, you know, you play a character like Octane, or you play a character like, I don't know, who's like not that viable. Maybe Mirage, where you're like bamboozling people. You play these characters in your casual lobbies and you feel like, you know, there's a good chance it'll work on someone. And then out of nowhere, the SPMM will be cranked up to the max for a day, or for a whole 2 weeks, it seems, in the cases of some of these events. And then suddenly you're going to have a really hard time playing these characters and enjoying these characters. And it just feels that the design isn't really working there. Because if the game isn't fun and isn't balanced at that high level as well, then if you're messing with the skill-based matchmaking, it means that I'm going to suddenly have to have a really bad time. And I think that's true with a lot of the map design as well. Like, if we take, let's take Capital as an example. Capital's fun to just run around in when everyone's mixed skill, and, you know, it's not going to be a full group of Predator 20 bomb 4K sweats in every building. But as soon as you get this skill-based matchmaking, or as soon as you enter a ranked game, I mean, if you enter a ranked game, it's different because you've asked for it, but you notice these issues with design in a ranked game, it becomes very hard to move and push and do anything. You get, I mean, in ranked games, and especially in pro games, you get like over 10 people in the end game circles, and that's because it's very difficult in this game to make a push without risk. And a push obviously should have risk as well. I don't really necessarily agree with that Revenant meta that's going on at the moment, which is kind of tackling that a little bit. I think that can be very frustrating as well. There needs to be a balance between risk and reward in every push and every decision that you make. But I just think, you know, it goes between two extremes, and in a system where suddenly skill-based matchmaking is being amped up, you have this gameplay that just really doesn't work anymore. Like the Octane bounce pad is a good example. Like Octane's bounce pad just stops working as soon as you bump into a team that is very high skill. And the same way, some of the map design really kind of falls apart and becomes very dull and frustrating to fight in. This train yard is a good example. As soon as there's a team on top of the train carts, if they happen to be capable, they will hold that train cart and they'll be a nightmare to push through. A bad team, you know, you can use lots of creative options. You can use Octane's bounce pad, for instance. You can place it on the blue carts. You can then grab onto the zip line and you can surprise them in the cart. That's a fun option, but it's not a viable option. Like, it's not a good option, but it's obviously something that Respawn consider, you know, should theoretically be useful because Octane's bounce pad is in the game, and that seems like an opportune moment to use it. But it just isn't useful against players that are good. And like I say, I think the inconsistent, intransparent skill-based matchmaking creates a big problem there, because you have these fun gameplay moments overshadowed by all these moments where the game systems just aren't coming together and aren't working. And you have these like two gameplay styles that you're being like thrown between at the whim of Respawn without any sort of communication between what's going on. Like, if I wanted to play ranked, I probably would be in the ranked playlist, to be truthful with you. It has a very distinct playstyle, and you know, I do enjoy playing like that, and I don't even mind if we had strict-based skill-based matchmaking in casual lobbies, but we just have this weird hybrid system where it feels like it's throwing me easy games to keep me engaged every now and again, and then when it doesn't want to, it's just throwing like every sweat in Europe into my lobby. Yeah, so I think that's a big, I mean, I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that's a big issue with engagement at the moment. It's just that consistent feeling of progression and feeling of skill acquisition when you're playing the game, and feeling of being able to develop your playstyle in these lobbies, and how that interacts with skill-based matchmaking at the moment. I think that is an issue. I think it's very difficult to get a feel for the game and be able to play consistently at the moment, and be able to consistently have fun, I think, within these like fluctuating SBMM lobbies. So that's kind of problem one. The other problems are equally important, I think, but at this stage in the season, you know, I think everyone that plays fairly regularly, which is a lot of my friends and a lot of the players that kind of, you know, end up putting a lot of money into the game and engaging with the game to a high degree, like, you completed the battle pass most likely, or very near completing it, and after that there's nothing to do or work towards or achieve. You know, most of my friends, if they were going to get a 20 bomb, they already have it. They already have the badges. They're not going to keep grinding for badges all the time. And that's not something you can deliberately work for anyway. The people are deliberately working for badges are usually, to be honest with you, boosting them. Like, the people that are, like, every game trying to get a 20 bomb badge to put on their YouTube channel, there's been a lot of people, like, using exploits to get into low-skill lobbies and things like that. A lot of that going around and things. But that's not something that the everyday player like is working towards, I don't think, you know. There needs to be more in the game, like maybe like gun skins or character skins that are exclusive to like certain challenges or doing something. Players should have something that they can play the game and earn by playing. I think that is an important tool to keeping players engaged. Like, you can't put everything into your loot boxes and expect that to be a means of keeping players playing. Like, and the collection event was something, I guess, you know, having something where players can unlock some extra things by playing the Armed and Dangerous event, but then we're back for an indefinite period of time of nothing. And again, this is going to be like, you know, like a month or so, with where many of my friends have completed the battle pass and have nothing to do or achieve in the game. And that's just not very compelling, to be honest with you. Like, we need something else to keep players engaged in this game, other than, you know, some legacy badges that they can still go for if they don't have them already. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have a 20 bomb at this stage, like, it's probably, I mean, it will happen eventually if you're close to it, but like, it's not something you can shoot for deliberately without boosting it, you know, and look, that's not advisable either. I'd never try and boost the badge or anything like that. So they just need something else. It needs something more. It needs something more to engage players in the long term. And the final point is creativity. And a lot of games, they have some attributes of player expression. Like Call of Duty has like custom gun skins, private lobbies. Fortnite has custom maps that players can create, all sorts of weirdness in the game. Had lots of weird building strategies and playstyle preferences because of those like very high skill ceiling building mechanics. But in Apex, you kind of, you have this, I guess you do have some cool movement systems like this and like wall jumping and stuff. There's ways to express yourself a little bit there. But in terms of the guns that people are using and the playstyles that people are adopting, it does tend to be all Flatline, R99, 301, Mastiff, maybe a little bit of Eva. Like, snipers generally aren't in use. Energy weapons generally aren't in use. G7's tentatively in use. It depends on the circumstances. I certainly wouldn't use it in any like non-ranked lobbies, and in ranked I'd feel uncomfortable using it at most ranges compared to other options. But I mean, it's a viable enough gun. But yeah, I would say most people are running like R99 Wingman or 301 Wingman or R99 Flatline, things like that. And there's not many variations there. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, you watch one streamer to the next, and you're going to see they've got a very similar playstyle. Characters vary, but again, there are top tier characters, and they're inclined to play those characters to do well. So, I don't know. I just wish there was more in terms of gameplay variety and gameplay creativity. Like, whenever I get a Kraber, I feel like it's a really fun moment because it means I get to do something different with a gun that's actually viable. Like, I mean, I could start pulling out the Mozambiques and the P2020s, but they're just not a lot of fun. And at this stage, they're also quite stale. Like, we don't have anything new in that regard for a long time, and the game doesn't have that many guns in it compared to some of its competitors anyway. So there's not a lot of like flexibility with your playstyle at the best of times, even if everything was viable. You know, in something like Warzone, you have these loadouts. I'm not saying Apex should have loadouts, but because of those loadouts, you get to kind of curate a playstyle before the lobby's even started, and you get to consistently use that with the loadout systems. So you have a lot of YouTubers just making videos with like hard to use snipers or certain SMGs and just kind of having fun with them. But in Apex, that's not really the case. I think something they could do is, I mean, you could eliminate some of the RNG by just kind of like more closely aligning many of the guns. Like, say the alternate in the RE45. You know, at the moment they're just stopgaps, but if they were kind of viable options, if you had more viable options, I don't think that would be a problem. If you had it kind of like, oh, this is my playstyle, I like to use the RE45 for the full game, I don't think that would be a problem. I think that would be fine. I think that would be kind of cool. But as it is, it's just like, oh, this is an attachment holder to my R99. I mean, I'm not saying the RE45 is terrible, it is quite good, but an R99 is a better gun, or a Prowler is a better gun, so you're going to adopt those more consistently, so the end game is going to be more of the same. And this is especially problematic lately because of the issues with the Havoc and such being nerfed. Like, I agreed with Havoc nerf, but I think it probably went too far. I think the Havoc, at least for me, I can only speak my own personal experience, but I wouldn't pick it up anymore. I would use the Flatline more consistently, just because you can build into it. You can get a magazine. It doesn't have the enormous kick at the start of the mag. It's got more consistent hip fire because you don't have the charge time, so when someone's in your face, you can just blast them. It's just a better gun, and even without the attachments, I think it's probably a better gun as well, mainly because you don't have to deal with the charge time. So yeah, there's kind of like some issues there with variety with some of the nerfs recently. I think as it stands, they could just remove the Havoc and the L stuff from the game and add a couple of guns that are more interesting, you know. Add something that has a different shooting mechanism, add a bow, add something wacky that we can, add like a energy pistol or something, I don't know. Just do something, add some more viable guns to the game so that we can have a bit more variety in gameplay. But the final thing as well is, I'd like to see custom ways. I think custom ways are a very creative way in which players can kind of mess around with the mechanics of the game, and Apex doesn't have that. In any case, these are really my thoughts on the game and its state at the moment. If you agree or have any other thoughts, let me know in the comments. Hopefully, you know, we see some more updates from Respawn in the future. The kind of crossplay announcement is cool, but it doesn't really address many of these issues I have with the game. You know, ranked is a fun way to engage with the game in the long term, I guess, but you know, if you've done it one season, it's like I was Masters in the last split, and I don't know if I can be bothered to be Masters in this split. It's kind of, you know, it's more of the same, more for the same rewards, and I certainly wouldn't necessarily want to do it in another season. Yeah, I just think they need to really work on some, maybe some more transparency with the skill-based matchmaking. I'd really like lobbies to just feel more consistent. I really like more to shoot towards in the game, like more kind of things I can unlock just by playing and not spending, and long term, not just when events appear. And I'd like a lot more like player expression in the game, both in the gameplay and outside of it, like in variety of weapons and loadouts that players can use, and strategies that players can use, as well as things like custom lobbies and ways that players can play around with the game's mechanics in fun and creative ways. Because I really love messing around in custom lobbies in Titanfall. I love doing that in Call of Duty as well, but you know, it's just something that's lacking here. So yeah, this has been Gung Joe. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, which is a big shame.